The movie opens up with Michele Silenzi, a shy 13-year-old kid from Trieste, Italy, who lives with his single mom, a local police inspector. He's often overlooked at school and is picked on regularly by the school bullies. As usual, Michele rides his bicycle to school. Once he's seated in the class, he sets his eyes on his crush, Stella. Michele is so obsessed with her that he always takes videos of her. But our hero doesn't have enough courage to express his feelings. We learn that tonight is a costume party at school. After class, a police inspector, Michele's mom, comes to class and informs the students that 2 of their classmates have been missing for the last 2 days. She tells them to report it to her if they know anything about the missing students. After this, she goes over to Michele's seat and hands over his lunch. After she leaves, the school bullies start taunting Michele as usual, labeling him as Mother's Boy. The boy is deeply affected by it, and to make matters worse, his nose suddenly starts bleeding. Michele rushes to the bathroom to wash it, but the bullies follow him there as well. They mercilessly beat him up and even steal his €50 note that he had saved to buy a Spider-Man costume. Upset and fed up with his life, Michele returns home in a very bad mood. He has a small sister who also knows that he's often taunted at school and has no friends. She's very supportive of him and often plays with him so as not to make him feel alone. Meanwhile, Michele is worried as he doesn't have enough money to buy the Spider-Man costume for the party. Left with no choice, he gathers a few euros from his piggy bank and heads to a vintage thrift store. Once at the store, he looks around, but doesn't find anything interesting except Halloween costumes. Suddenly, a boy about the same age as him appears from behind and inquires what he's looking for. Michele shows him the few euros he can afford, so the boy offers him an old costume. The boy then tells him that it belonged to an obscure Chinese superhero who had mystical powers. Reluctantly, Michele settles for the cheap costume and goes home. And once he puts it on, it is evident that he isn't happy with his purchase. In the next scene, Michele musters up some courage and attends the party. Luckily, Stella engages in a conversation with him, and he starts to believe that they can really be friends now. However, the bullies once again arrive to interrupt his good time with Stella. They embarrass him at the party by showing Stella that he has been secretly filming her on his phone. Mortified, Michele attempts to make his escape, but all the kids block his way out. He then runs to the bathroom and locks himself in, while the bullies follow him, banging on the bathroom door and yelling at him to come outside. Michele is angry at himself for not being careful with his phone. Now he wishes nothing more than to become invisible. Suddenly, the light goes off, and when it returns back, he is nowhere to be seen. The following morning, he finds himself in his bed and wakes up to freshen up. Surprisingly, he discovers that his wish has come true when he doesn't see his reflection in the mirror. At first, he screams out of fear, which worries his mom. When she comes to his room to check, she doesn't see him, furthermore confirming that our young hero has now become invisible. Later, Michele goes to school fully dressed up as he doesn't want anyone to know about his supernatural ability. He then decides to use his newfound power to get back at his bullies. He undresses himself, making him invisible, and goes to the class. In the meantime, an unknown guy with a black glass watches him from afar. In class, Michele takes revenge on a boy who used to torture him by taking his paintball gun and shooting some paint on the teacher, making it look like it's the boy's doing. The teacher then yells at the boy and reports him to the school administration. Next, the teenager spies on his female classmates in the changing room. As he's lost in his thoughts, Stella throws a towel, and it coincidentally lands on the invisible Michele. He soon starts to get nervous and loses his power at the same time. This makes his body physically appear, much to the horror of all the girls. Later, the incident is reported to Michele's mom, who is left totally stunned. She's also disappointed in him, but Michele doesn't have any explanation for his behavior earlier. Suddenly, his mom gets a call from the police station. She learns that the missing students have sent their videos, asking the police officers not to look for them as they're running away from their parents. They also assure that they're safe. The following day, a psychiatrist arrives at the school and enters Michele's classroom, where he teaches the teenagers about the importance of parents. He also lectures on why the students should never leave home, ensuring that it would be very dangerous to take off alone. Suddenly, Michele notices that his hand is starting to become invisible, meaning that his power is back again. At the same time, the psychiatrist approaches him and, fearing that he might get caught, he quickly flees from the class and heads home. Meanwhile, Michele's mom arrives late from work, talking over the phone with an unknown person. Michele eavesdrops on the conversation and shockingly finds out that he is not her biological son. In the next scene, we see him playing on a swing. At the same time, Stella happens to pass by, and she notices the swing float in the air by itself. Out of curiosity, she examines it, and Michele starts chatting with her by drawing a smiley face on the sand. Not knowing that it's Michele who is just by her side, Stella continues their conversation and spends a good time playing by the swing. The next day in class, Michele notices Stella making the same smiley face in her notebook. He becomes happy and decides to tell her the truth, hoping that she'll forgive him and they can be friends again. However, that night, Stella doesn't come, so Michele goes to her place. He secretly sees her practicing dance, but suddenly, someone enters the premises and kidnaps her. Michele tries to rescue her, but he's too weak to go after the kidnapper's van. Later, we see Stella being examined in what looks like a lab room. A doctor takes some samples from her and runs some tests. It's revealed that the kidnappers are looking for a child who has the power of invisibility. Since they do not know the kid, they're kidnapping everyone and running tests on them. After examining the results from Stella, it's proved that she doesn't have the power. Therefore, she's thrown into a chamber-like room, where she meets with two other kids who had gone missing earlier. Meanwhile, the police learn about Stella's kidnapping case and begin looking for her. A concerned Michele also decides to help by using his superpower. However, he learns that his costume has been washed by his mom, which means that his power is also gone. Enraged, he confronts her and brings up the fact that she isn't his biological mother. The latter is left speechless, and she doesn't say anything to defend herself. After this, Michele wanders around on his bicycle, thinking of ways to save Stella. Suddenly, the mysterious blind guy who had first seen Michele turning invisible approaches him. The man tells him that the power isn't in the costume, but within himself. And the most shocking part is that the man is none other than Michele's father, Andre. In the next scene, he narrates his story. Many years ago, when he was in the army in Russia, a nuclear power plant exploded. The explosion released some kind of radiation, and as a result, the survivors gained superpowers, including himself. Although Andre became blind, he gained the ability to read people's minds. Eventually, he, along with some other survivors, became members of a secret Russian group called the Specials. However, the leader of the group exploited them for war. At the same time, Andre met Michele's biological mother and they fell in love. She soon gave birth to Michele, but the leader of the Specials took him away, hoping to use his power for war as well. The parents somehow managed to rescue him and run away, but they were followed mercilessly by the troops. Soon after, Michele's mother was caught in the forest while escaping. Luckily, Andre saved the infant and managed to run away. Later, he gave Michele up for adoption as he knew he couldn't raise the infant alone. In the present, Andre tells Michele that his adopted mother is a really good person. Before parting ways, he then gives the teenager a suit that can help him control his power. Later, Michele's mother finds him and apologizes for not telling him the truth. The boy immediately forgives her and they have a heart-to-heart conversation. Elsewhere, Stella tries her best to find an escape route. With the help of other kids, she manages to get out of the chamber, only to discover that they are on a ship. However, she is not willing to give up after coming this far. So she moves the submarine's light and successfully signals for help, which Michele notices from afar. While trying to escape with the other kids, Stella sees an old man in a wheelchair in a rusty room. Suddenly, the kidnappers appear and try to take the kids inside once again. They are almost successful, but right then, Michele arrives to save his classmates. With the help of his powers, he easily manages to subdue the bad guys and defeat them. Michele also takes this as the perfect opportunity to impress Stella, so he reveals his identity. Although Stella is a bit shocked, she is happy that her best friend has come to her rescue. Before they can make their final escape, Stella wants to save the old man in the wheelchair, so she leads Michele and the other kids to the rusty room. However, she leads them directly to the bad guys instead. This is when Michele learns that Stella's mind has been controlled by the old man, and she's doing whatever is asked of her. Just when it appears as if the bad guys are going to win, something shocking happens. Michele learns that he has telekinetic powers, using which he can move objects. With this newfound power, he effortlessly fights with the enemies and successfully saves his friends. In the next scene, Michele and the kids safely arrive on the shore, where he flaunts his superpower in front of everyone. He also meets his father there, who advises him not to showcase his power since he's still being targeted by the specials. Michele obliges, and his father mentally wipes everyone's memory. The film ends with the shocking revelation that the leader of the specials is actually Michele's birth mother.